everything you believe about achieving your biggest goals is probably wrong. Think about that brutal, familiar cycle. You set a goal maybe to get in shape, start a business, or learn a new skill. You feel a powerful surge of motivation. You go all in for a few weeks, maybe even a month. But then the fire dies out. You lose steam, slip back into your old routines, and end up right where you started, feeling like a failure. Why does this keep happening? It's because we overestimate the importance of one giant heroic moment, and we completely underestimate the mind-blowing power of making tiny improvements consistently. Consider this staggering math. If you get just 1% better each day, by the end of the year, you will be 37 times better. But this law works both ways. A tiny 1% decline each day will virtually wipe you out, leaving you with almost nothing. This is the explosive secret at the heart of one of the most important books of our time. Today, we are doing a deep dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book is more than just a guide to habits. It is the owner's manual for human behavior that you were never given. And its most radical, game-changing idea is this: your ambitious goals might be the very reason you keep failing. In this video, we are going to show you why you should forget your goals and focus on your systems instead. We will give you the blueprint for building a life of continuous improvement, where tiny, effortless changes compound into truly remarkable results. Get ready to fundamentally change the way you approach your life. In the introduction, we made a bold claim. We said that getting just 1% better each day can make you 37 times better over the course of a year. That number sounds almost magical, like a trick or a get-rich-quick scheme. It's hard to truly believe that something so small could have such a dramatic impact. But this isn't magic, it's math. And to really understand how these tiny atomic habits can completely reshape your life, we need to look beyond the numbers and dive into a real-world story that is nothing short of legendary. It's the story of how one of the most pathetic teams in all of professional sports transformed into a global powerhouse, all by focusing on things that seemed laughably insignificant. For over 100 years, the British cycling team was the definition of mediocre. They were painfully average, a complete nonentity in the professional cycling world. Their record was so dismal that in their entire history, they had only managed to win a single Olympic gold medal. They had never won the Tour de France, the most prestigious race in the sport. It got so bad that some of the top bicycle manufacturers in Europe actually refused to sell their bikes to the team. They were afraid that being associated with British cycling would tarnish their brand's reputation. It was a joke, a national embarrassment. There was no expectation of success. The culture was one of failure. But then, in 2003, everything changed. The organization hired a new performance director named Dave Brailsford. He wasn't a legendary cyclist or a famous coach. He was a man with a different kind of philosophy, a strategy that sounded a bit abstract at first. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. The idea was actually quite simple. Brailsford believed in breaking down every single tiny aspect of what it takes to ride a bicycle, and then finding a way to improve each component by just 1%. He believed that if they could successfully execute this strategy, these hundreds of tiny improvements would add up to a remarkable increase in overall performance. This was not just about the obvious things. They did things like redesigning the bike seats to make them more comfortable, and rubbing alcohol on the tires for a slightly better grip. But they went so much deeper. They went into obsessive, almost insane detail. They tested different types of massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery for the athletes. They hired a surgeon to come in and teach every single rider the proper way to wash their hands, all to reduce the tiny chance of catching a cold or an infection that could set back their training. They became obsessed with sleep, hiring experts to find the perfect mattress and pillow combination for each individual rider, even packing those specific pillows and mattresses to take with them to every hotel during a competition. Some of their changes seemed completely unrelated to cycling. One of the most famous examples is when they painted the inside of the team's support truck a brilliant white. Why would they do that? Their reasoning was that a white background would make it easier to spot tiny specks of dust that could otherwise go unnoticed. This dust could potentially compromise the performance of the finely tuned high-tech bikes. Think about that for a moment. Does the color of a truck's interior make a cyclist pedal faster? Does one specific type of pillow win you a gold medal? On their own? Absolutely not. Each change, viewed in isolation, seems trivial, almost pointless. Many people thought Brailsford was crazy. But what was the result of this seemingly absurd obsession with tiny details? The results were not just good, they were historic. They were almost unbelievable. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British cycling team went on an absolute tear. They completely dominated the competition, winning an incredible 60% of the gold medals available in track cycling events. 4 years later, at the 2012 London Olympics held in their own backyard, their performance was even more stunning. The team shattered 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. That same year, a British cyclist named Bradley Wiggins became the first Brit ever to win the Tour de France. The next year, his teammate Chris Froome won it, and British riders would go on to win the event in 5 of the next 6 years. They had transformed from the laughingstock of the cycling world into one of an undisputed dynasty, one of the most successful runs in the history of any sport. This was not a fluke. It wasn't because of one superstar athlete who came out of nowhere. It was the direct result of their system. It was the aggregation of marginal gains. It was the compound effect of hundreds of tiny, atomic habits, each one a small vote cast for victory. This is the real-world proof of that 1% rule. This is what happens when you commit to tiny, continuous improvements. The book puts it perfectly. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. They work just like money in a savings account. A single penny doesn't make you rich. A small deposit doesn't seem to change your balance much. But over time, the interest compounds on itself, and the growth becomes exponential. This compounding effect is neutral. It works both for you and against you. When you perform a good habit, you are making a deposit into your future self. Getting 1% better feels like nothing on day 1, or on day 10, or even on day 30. Our brains are not built to understand exponential growth, so the results in the beginning are often disappointing. But the long-term math is what matters. Those tiny gains build on each other, creating a powerful upward spiral of success. The reverse is also terrifyingly true. Bad habits compound against you. One extra soda today doesn't make you unhealthy. One impulsive purchase online doesn't make you broke. Watching one more episode on Netflix instead of going to bed doesn't ruin your life. But these are 1% errors. They are tiny deviations in your trajectory. And just like good habits, they compound. They start as a small crack in the foundation, and then silently, slowly, they grow. That one soda becomes a daily habit. That one impulse purchase weakens your discipline for the next one. These tiny negative choices add up until you suddenly find yourself overweight, in debt, or constantly exhausted, wondering how you got there. It happened one tiny, bad decision at a time. This brings us to one of the most important and relatable concepts in the entire book. If the power of compounding is so great, why is it so hard for us to stick with good habits? Why do we give up so easily? We've all been there. We start a new workout plan with incredible enthusiasm. We go to the gym for a few weeks, maybe a month, but when we look in the mirror, we still see the same body. We study a new language every night, but when we try to speak it, we can't form a coherent sentence. We get discouraged because we expect to see linear progress, but the real world doesn't work that way. When we don't see immediate results, we think it's not working. This frustrating period is what James Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. A better name for it might be the valley of disappointment. This is the period of time where you are putting in the work and making positive changes, but you haven't yet seen the breakthrough results you were hoping for. This is the point where most people quit. They mistakenly believe that their efforts are being wasted. The book uses a brilliant analogy to explain this: the melting ice cube. Imagine you have a block of ice sitting on a table in a cold room. The temperature in the room is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. The ice is a solid block. Now, you slowly begin to raise the temperature. You raise it to 26 degrees. What happens? Nothing. It's still a block of ice. You raise it to 27 degrees. Still nothing. 28, 29, 30, 31 degrees. You have been putting in all this energy, raising the temperature by 6 degrees. But from the outside, it looks like your effort has been completely wasted. The ice cube is still just a block of ice. This is the valley of disappointment. This is the point where you might say, "This isn't working. I'm going to stop." But then, you raise the temperature just one more degree, to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. A massive transformation happens. The ice begins to melt. A fundamental change of state occurs. The breakthrough was not the result of that one final degree of change. It was the result of all the work you did before. All of that energy that seemed to have no effect was actually being stored up inside the ice, waiting to be unleashed. The most powerful outcomes in life are often delayed. So-called overnight successes are almost always the result of years of unseen work on the plateau of latent potential. A business might work for a decade with very little to show for it, and then suddenly, it hits a tipping point and becomes a household name. All meaningful change takes time. This leads us to a crucial shift in mindset. What truly matters is not your level of success or failure right now. What matters is the direction you are heading. It's about whether your current habits are putting you on the path toward your desired destination. The book illustrates this with another powerful analogy: the airplane flight path. Think of an airplane taking off from Los Angeles, with its destination set for New York City. If the pilot, right after takeoff, adjusts the plane's heading by just 3.5 degrees to the south, it's an almost unnoticeable change. The nose of the plane barely moves. No one on board would feel a thing. But over the course of a 1,000-mile journey across the country, the impact of that tiny change is enormous. The plane won't land in New York City. It will land hundreds of miles away in Washington, D.C. Your life is exactly the same. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift in your daily habits can guide you to a completely different destination 5, 10, or 20 years from now. One decision to read a single page of a book each night instead of picking up your phone seems insignificant today. But over a lifetime, that small habit can be the difference between a life of continuous learning and growth, and a life of passive consumption and stagnation. Every choice you make, no matter how small, is like a vote for the type of person you want to become. These votes build up over time and ultimately shape the trajectory of your entire life. Recognizing this incredible power of tiny habits is the first essential step, but it also raises a critical question. We've been told our whole lives to set big, ambitious goals. But what if that's actually the wrong approach? Next, we'll talk about why focusing on your goals might be the very thing that's holding you back, and why what you really need is a better system. We just established the incredible, compounding power of our tiny habits. We saw how a commitment to 1% daily improvements transformed the British cycling team from a joke into a dynasty. Now that we understand this principle, the next step seems obvious, doesn't it? Just set a huge, ambitious goal for yourself, and then use your willpower to break it down into small, daily, 1% actions. This is the advice we have been given our entire lives. Set clear, specific, and challenging goals. But what if this advice is fundamentally flawed? What if focusing so intensely on the finish line is the very reason so many of us stumble, get discouraged, and ultimately fail? This is where Atomic Habits makes one of its most radical and powerful arguments. The author, James Clear, suggests that our obsession with goal setting is actually counterproductive. After years of meticulously setting goals for his fitness, his studies, and his business, he came to a startling realization. His results, both the successes and the failures, had very little to do with the goals he set, and everything to do with the systems he followed. So what exactly is the difference between a goal and a system? It's simple. A goal is the result you want to achieve. It is the destination. Winning the championship is a goal. Publishing a book is a goal. Earning $1 million is a goal. A system, on the other hand, is the process that leads to those results. It is the journey. Your system is how you recruit players, how you design daily practices, and the coaching philosophy you implement. Your system is your daily writing schedule, how you edit your chapters, and how you market your work. Your system is how you manage your expenses, the investment strategies you follow, and the sales process you use. Goals are about the finish line. Systems are about the process of getting there. Now consider this fascinating question. If you completely ignored your goals and focused only on improving your system, would you still get results? Imagine you are a basketball coach. Your ultimate goal is to win the championship. But what if you told your team to forget about the trophy completely? Instead, you pour every ounce of your energy into the system. You focus on running perfect drills every single day. You refine your offensive plays. You work on your team's communication and conditioning. You obsess over every detail of the process. Would your team still win games? The author argues that yes, absolutely they would. Their results would improve dramatically. As the legendary 3-time Super Bowl winning coach Bill Walsh famously said, the score takes care of itself. The same is true in every other area of life. If you want better results, stop obsessing over the goal and start dedicating yourself to your system. This doesn't mean goals are useless. Goals are essential for setting a direction and providing clarity. They tell you where you want to go, but it's your systems that actually make the progress and get you there. In fact, focusing too much on the goal itself creates 4 major problems that can sabotage your efforts before you even begin. The first problem is that winners and losers often have the exact same goals. This is a simple but profound paradox. Every single athlete who shows up to the Olympics has the goal of winning a gold medal. Every candidate who applies for a top job has the goal of being hired. If successful and unsuccessful people share the same goals, then the goal itself cannot be what differentiates them. Think back to the British cycling team. For the 100 years they were failing miserably, did they not have the goal of winning the Tour de France? Of course they did. The goal was always there, hanging over them. But it was only when they changed their system to one of 100 tiny, continuous improvements that they finally stood on top of the podium. The goal didn't deliver the victory. The system did. A goal is just a wish. A system is a commitment to the process that makes the wish come true. The second problem with a goals-first mindset is that achieving a goal is often just a momentary change. It doesn't create lasting success. The book gives the perfect example of a messy room. Imagine your bedroom is a complete disaster. You get a sudden burst of motivation and set a goal to clean it. You spend a whole afternoon organizing, dusting, and vacuuming. At the end of the day, you have achieved your goal. The room is sparkling clean. But if you still have the same sloppy, undisciplined habits that created the mess in the first place, how long will your clean room last? A few days? A week? Soon enough, clothes will be back on the floor, papers will be piled up on the desk, and the room will be a mess again. You are right back where you started, waiting for the next jolt of motivation to repeat the cycle. This is the fundamental problem with the goals-only approach. It's like treating the symptoms of an illness without ever addressing the underlying cause. Achieving the goal of a clean room only changes your life for that one moment. Building a system of cleaning up for 5 minutes every single night fixes the problem at its root. It changes the fundamental behaviors that led to the outcome. If you want lasting improvement, you have to stop chasing results and start fixing the systems that produce them. The third problem is that goals restrict your happiness. We constantly fall into a dangerous psychological trap. We tell ourselves, once I achieve this goal, then I will be happy. We promise ourselves that as soon as we lose 20 pounds, or get that promotion, or pay off our debt, we can finally relax and feel successful. We are constantly postponing our happiness, making it conditional on reaching some future milestone. This creates an either-or conflict. Either you achieve your goal and you are a success, or you fail to achieve it and you are a failure. It's a black and white view of the world that leaves no room for celebrating the progress you have made along the way. You are defining your entire journey by a single narrow target. A systems-based approach is the antidote to this. When you fall in love with the process itself, rather than being obsessed with the final product, you can find satisfaction and happiness at any time. As long as your system is running, you are succeeding. Every time you show up for your workout, you win. Every time you write one page, you win. Every time you practice your instrument, you win. Your happiness is no longer held hostage by a future outcome. It is found in the present moment, in the act of executing your system. And the fourth problem is that goals can actually conflict with your long-term progress. This is what creates the yo-yo effect we so often see. The most common example is the marathon runner. Many people train for months, directing all of their energy and focus toward the single goal of crossing that finish line. But as soon as the race is over, what happens? Their training often stops completely. Why? Because the goal that was motivating them, the event that gave them purpose, is now gone. When all of your hard work is focused on a particular target, what is left to push you forward after you achieve it? This is why so many people revert to their old, bad habits right after they accomplish a goal. People go on a strict diet to lose weight for a wedding, and then immediately gain it all back afterward. The goal-oriented mindset is about winning one game. But a systems-oriented mindset is about continuing to play the game. People who think long-term are not focused on a single victory or a single defeat. They are focused on a process of continuous improvement, constant refinement, and endless learning. Their identity isn't tied to one achievement. It's tied to the lifestyle itself. So if you find yourself struggling to change your habits, if you feel like you are stuck in a rut, the problem is not you. You are not lazy or lacking willpower. The problem is your system. Your system is flawed. The book states this idea with incredible clarity. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Focusing on the overall process, not a single desired outcome, is the real key to unlocking your potential. Understanding the importance of systems gets us one huge step closer to mastering our habits. But is having a good system enough? Is it possible that even with the best designed process in the world, something deep inside of us can still hold us back and sabotage our own progress? The book argues that yes, there is something even deeper and more powerful than your systems, and that something is your identity. Next, let's talk about how to reshape who you believe you are, so you can stop just wanting to be a certain type of person and finally become that person. Let's move on to the next critical layer. Change who you are. We've just made a powerful case that focusing on our systems is far more effective than obsessing over our goals. This is a major shift in thinking for most of us. But Atomic Habits argues that to create truly permanent change, we must go one level deeper. There is a force more fundamental than your daily processes. A force that can either be your greatest ally in self-improvement or your most stubborn and powerful enemy. That force is your identity. It is all about who you believe you are at your very core. To understand this, imagine that behavior change is like an onion. It has 3 distinct layers. The outermost layer is about changing your outcomes. This is the most visible layer, and it's where we usually focus our attention. Outcomes are the results you get. Losing 20 pounds, publishing your novel, doubling your company's revenue. Nearly all of the goals we set are outcome-based goals. The middle layer is about changing your process. This means changing your habits and your systems. This layer is about what you do. You implement a new workout routine at the gym. You develop a habit of decluttering your desk at the end of each day. You create a system for practicing meditation every morning. Most of the habits we try to build are focused on this process level. But the deepest, innermost layer of the onion is about changing your identity. This layer is not about what you want or what you do. It's about what you believe. It's about your self-image, your worldview, and your fundamental judgments about yourself and the world around you. Most people begin the process of change by working from the outside in. They start with the outcome they want. They think, I want to be thin, so they start a diet. Or, I want to write a book. So they try to force themselves to write. But this approach is often shallow and short-lived, because it fails to address the person's underlying beliefs about themselves. You are trying to change your actions without changing the person who performs them. The book argues that the most effective and lasting way to change is to work from the inside out. You start with the deepest layer, your identity. You begin by asking yourself a different kind of question. Instead of asking, what do I want? You ask, who do I wish to become? Who is the type of person who could achieve the things I want to achieve? What would a truly healthy person do every day? How would a truly productive person organize their time? What are the beliefs of a creative and successful artist? When you start here, at the core of your identity, your behaviors begin to change naturally as a consequence. This is the incredible power of identity-based habits. The reason this works is because of one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, our deep, fundamental need to act in a way that is consistent with our identity. it is incredibly difficult to maintain behaviors that contradict your self-image. Your brain does not like internal conflict. For example, you might want to be healthy, but if you deep down see yourself as a couch potato who hates exercise, you can use willpower to force yourself to the gym a few times, but it will always feel like a struggle. Your core identity will act like an invisible rubber band, constantly trying to pull you back to the familiar comfort of the sofa because that is who you believe you are. Your old identity will sabotage your new plans. The book shares a perfect story that illustrates this. A man named Brian Clark had a lifelong habit of biting his fingernails. He had tried everything to stop. He had tried putting bitter-tasting polish on his nails. He had tried to consciously resist the urge through willpower. He had tried every process-based solution he could think of, and nothing worked. So one day, he decided to do something completely different. He didn't just try to stop biting his nails. He had his wife book him his first ever professional manicure. His logic was simple. He thought, if I start paying money to have my nails professionally cared for, I will start to take pride in them, and I probably won't want to ruin them. And miraculously, it worked. But the reason it worked wasn't the money. It was the shift in his identity. After the manicure, for the first time in his life, his nails looked healthy and attractive. He began to feel a sense of pride in how they looked, and because of that newfound pride, the urge to bite them completely vanished. He had stopped being a person who bites his nails. In his mind, he had become a person who has nice nails and takes pride in them. He changed his identity, and the behavior followed effortlessly. This reveals the most important truth about building good habits. True behavior change is identity change. The goal is not just to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not just to write a book. The goal is to become a writer. The goal is not to learn to play the guitar. The goal is to become a musician. When a habit becomes a fundamental part of your identity, you are no longer motivated by external results. The motivation becomes intrinsic. You do it because it is simply who you are. So if identity is the key, how is it formed? We aren't born with a fixed set of beliefs about ourselves. Our identity is something that we build over time, and it is built by our actions. Your identity is an accumulation of evidence. Every action you take is like a piece of evidence, a vote for the type of person you are. Every time you choose to go for a walk on your lunch break, you are casting a vote for the identity of I am a healthy person. Every time you sit down and write one paragraph, you are casting a vote for I am a writer. Every time you make your bed in the morning, you are casting a vote for I am an organized person. One single action will not radically change your beliefs overnight. One workout won't make you believe you're an athlete. But as the votes pile up, as the evidence accumulates, your self-image begins to shift. The new identity starts to feel more and more real because you have proof. The book points out that the word identity actually comes from the Latin words essentitas, which means repeatedly. Your identity is literally your repeated beingness. Whatever you repeatedly do, you are reinforcing the identity associated with that action. This simplifies the entire process of transformation into two simple steps. First, you must decide the type of person you want to be, and be specific. Don't just say you want to be successful. What kind of person is that? Maybe it is a productive person who always finishes their most important task before noon. Or maybe it's a reliable person who always keeps their promises. Or a healthy person who never misses a workout. Clarify the identity first. This will become your North Star. Second, prove it to yourself with small, atomic wins. You don't prove you're a healthy person by suddenly running a marathon tomorrow. You start by proving it in a small way. You take the stairs instead of the elevator. You add one vegetable to your dinner. You don't prove you're a writer by finishing a novel this month. You start by writing one sentence today. These tiny actions are your votes. They are non-threatening. They are easy to achieve. But they are the essential building blocks of your new identity. They are small pieces of evidence that tell your brain, hey, maybe this is who I am now. This is the real, deeper reason why atomic habits are so important. It's not just about getting better results, like being healthier, or wealthier, or more productive. It's about something far more profound. It's about fundamentally changing your beliefs about yourself. It is about becoming the architect of a new identity. It is no exaggeration to say that you are the sum of your habits. Now we have our North Star. We know we need to build our habits from the inside out, starting with our identity. But what are the actual practical mechanics of how a habit is formed in the brain? How does an action go from being a conscious, difficult choice to a fully automatic, unconscious behavior? To truly design habits that build our desired identity, we need to understand the fundamental blueprint that every single habit follows. In the next part, we'll dissect the simple 4-step neurological loop that runs all of our behaviors, good and bad, and learn how we can hijack it to build a better life. So far, our journey has been deep. We know we need to focus on tiny 1% improvements. We know we need to build reliable systems instead of just chasing fleeting goals. And most importantly, we have learned that the most profound and lasting change comes from shifting our very identity. But now, it is time to get practical. It is time to move from being a passenger in our own lives to becoming the engineer of our own behavior. To do that, we have to lift the hood and understand the simple, elegant engine that drives every single habit you have, both good and bad. James Clear reveals that every habit is controlled by a simple, four-step neurological process running on a constant loop in your brain. This pattern is so fundamental to our behavior that we are almost never consciously aware of it. The four steps are cue, craving, response, and reward. Every single one of your habits, from brushing your teeth in the morning to checking your phone when you feel bored, follows this exact framework. Let's break down each step. The first step is the cue. The cue is the trigger. It is a small bit of information that your brain picks up from the environment that predicts a potential reward is nearby. Think of it as a hint that kicks off the entire process. For example, the loud ding your phone makes when you get a new text message is a cue. Walking into a dark room and being unable to see is a cue. The smell of fresh coffee brewing when you walk into your kitchen is a cue. Your brain is a prediction machine that is constantly scanning your surroundings for these kinds of triggers. Our ancient ancestors were hardwired to notice cues that signaled primary rewards essential for survival, like the sight of a river signaling water, or the rustle in the bushes signaling either danger or prey. In our modern world, we are more often driven by cues that signal secondary rewards, like money, praise, social approval, power, or just a simple feeling of satisfaction. The cue is the first signal that tells your brain to go on autopilot and run a specific habit program. Once your brain perceives a cue, we move to the second step, the craving. The craving is the powerful motivational force behind every single habit. Without some level of craving or desire, you have no reason to act. But here's the critical thing to understand. You don't actually crave the habit itself. You crave the change in state that the habit delivers. You don't actually crave the act of smoking a cigarette. You crave the feeling of relief from stress that the cigarette provides. You don't crave the act of turning on the television. You crave the feeling of being entertained and escaping from your thoughts. You don't crave the act of opening your social media app. You crave the hit of novelty and the feeling of social connection it promises. A craving is simply the desire to change your current internal state. When your brain gets a cue and predicts that a certain action will deliver a desirable change, a craving is born. It is the anticipation of the reward that drives you forward. The third step is the response. This is the actual habit that you perform. It could be a physical action, like picking up your phone, or it could be a simple thought. Whether you actually follow through with the response depends on a couple of factors. It depends on how motivated you are by the craving, but it also depends on how much friction is associated with the behavior. If an action requires more physical or mental effort than you are willing to give at that moment, you probably will not do it. This is why it is so much easier to grab a bag of chips sitting on the counter than it is to peel and chop carrots from the back of the refrigerator. The response is the action that you hope will lead to the reward. And finally, we arrive at the fourth and most crucial step, the reward. The reward is the end goal of every habit loop, and it serves two vital purposes. First, the reward satisfies your craving. The food you eat satisfies your hunger. The funny video you watch satisfies your boredom. The hit of nicotine satisfies your stress. It delivers the positive change in state that you were seeking. But the reward serves a second, even more important purpose. It teaches your brain. When you experience the reward, your brain makes a note. It says, that felt good. That action we just took was useful. Let's remember this for next time. The reward is what reinforces the behavior. It completes the feedback loop and teaches your brain to associate the cue with the reward, making it more likely you will repeat the action automatically in the future. So, these four stages, cue, craving, response, and reward, form a continuous, self-reinforcing neurological feedback loop. The cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies the craving, and gets logged in your brain as something to do again when you see the cue. Over time, this loop becomes so fast and so automatic that you perform the habit without any conscious thought at all. The author also divides this four-step model into two distinct phases. The first two steps, the cue and the craving, form the problem phase. This is the phase where you realize that something needs to change. For example, your phone buzzes in your pocket. This is the cue. You feel a desire to know who contacted you, which is the craving. That is the problem. The second two steps, the response and the reward, form the solution phase. This is where you take action to get the outcome you desire. You pull your phone out of your pocket and read the text message. It is the action of response. Your curiosity is satisfied, and the reward is given. That is the solution. All behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. Understanding this four-step model is like a scientist being given a powerful new microscope. We can now place any one of our habits under the lens and see exactly how it works. We can identify the specific cue that triggers it, the craving that drives it, the response we perform, and the reward that locks it in place. And once we understand the mechanics, we can finally begin to take control. We can become the editor of our own automated behaviors. This habit loop is the foundation for the book's core practical advice, the 4 laws of behavior change. Each of these 4 laws is a simple, powerful lever that we can pull to influence one of these 4 steps. By manipulating these steps, we can make good habits seem irresistible and bad habits seem impossible. So what are these 4 powerful laws? In the next part, we will start with the very first step of the habit loop, the cue. and we will learn how to master the first law of behavior change. Make it obvious. We've just dissected the 4-step blueprint that governs every habit we have: cue, craving, response, and reward. We now understand the basic machinery of our own minds. It is finally time to learn how to operate that machine. Atomic Habits gives us 4 simple but incredibly powerful laws to do just that, and each law corresponds to one of those 4 steps. We will begin with the very first lever we can pull, the one that kicks off the entire automatic process, the cue. This brings us to the first law of behavior change: make it obvious. The reason this law comes first is simple. A habit cannot begin if the cue that triggers it goes unnoticed. The problem is that for our most deeply ingrained habits, the cues have become completely invisible to us. They have been integrated so seamlessly into our daily lives that we act on them without any conscious thought at all. Think about your own life. Do you find yourself mindlessly pulling your phone out of your pocket the second there is a lull in a conversation? Do you automatically grab a handful of snacks every time you walk into the kitchen, even if you are not hungry? Do you instinctively reach for the TV remote the moment you sit down on the couch after a long day? These are not conscious decisions. They are automated programs being run by invisible triggers in your environment. Before we can build good habits, we must first become aware of the ones we already have. The book highlights a fascinating practice from the Japanese railway system called pointing and calling. To reduce accidents, operators perform a unique safety check. Instead of just glancing at a signal, an operator will physically point at it and call out its status aloud. They will point at the speedometer and say, "The speed is now 75 miles per hour." They will point down the track and announce, "The signal is green." This might sound silly, but this system is incredibly effective. It has been shown to reduce errors by up to 85%. Why? Because it forces an unconscious automatic action into the realm of conscious awareness. We need to install a similar pointing and calling system in our own lives. The book suggests a simple exercise called a habit scorecard. You just go through your entire day and list out every single habit, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Then you label each habit as positive, negative, or neutral. Waking up is a neutral habit. Your next action, checking the phone for notifications, you would identify as a negative habit. After that, brushing your teeth is a positive habit, and making coffee is neutral. The act of simply observing and naming your behaviors makes you aware of the dozens of cues that you are responding to all day long. It makes the invisible visible. Once you are aware of the cues in your life, you can start to intentionally design new ones for the habits you want to build. The first technique for this is creating an implementation intention. Most of us have vague intentions, not real plans. We say things like, "I'm going to eat healthier," or "I want to exercise more." But these goals are destined to fail because they don't have a clear trigger. Your brain doesn't know when or where to start the program. An implementation intention solves this by giving your new habit a specific time and a specific place to live in your life. The formula is beautifully simple, as it clearly states, "I will perform a specific behavior at a specific time, in a specific location." For example, instead of saying "I'm going to meditate," you say, "I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen." Instead of "I need to study more," you say, "I will study Spanish for 20 minutes at 8 p.m. at my desk." When you define the exact time and place, you are creating a clear, unmissable cue for your brain. You are making the decision ahead of time. When 7 a.m. rolls around and you walk into your kitchen to get a glass of water, the cue is activated. You no longer have to waste mental energy deciding if you should meditate or when you should do it. The plan is already made. The book makes a crucial point here. Many of us think we lack motivation, when what we really lack is clarity. A second, even more clever technique is called habit stacking. This strategy allows you to leverage the momentum of habits you already have. Your brain has already built powerful neural pathways for your current daily routines. Instead of trying to build a new road from scratch in the middle of nowhere, it's far easier to just build a new on-ramp onto an existing superhighway. Habit stacking connects a new habit you want to form to an old habit that is already firmly established. The formula is simple. After my current habit, I will perform my new habit. The key is to pair your desired new behavior with something you already do automatically without fail. For example, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. Your existing habit of making coffee becomes the automatic cue to meditate. After I take off my work shoes when I get home, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. The act of taking off your shoes becomes the trigger to exercise. After I brush my teeth at night, I will floss one tooth. Brushing your teeth, a deeply ingrained habit, becomes the cue for flossing. This method is incredibly powerful because it seamlessly weaves new behaviors into the fabric of your existing daily life, letting the old habit do the hard work of triggering the new one. The third, and arguably most powerful technique for making cues obvious, is environment design. Our environment is the invisible hand that shapes our human behavior. We are far more influenced by the spaces we inhabit than we think. Therefore, one of the most practical and effective ways to change your habits is to stop trying to resist temptation, and instead, redesign your world. To make a good habit obvious, you need to make the cues for it impossible to ignore. Do you want to read more? Stop hiding your books on a dusty bookshelf. Place a book on your pillow so you see it before bed. Leave a book on the coffee table, right next to the TV remote. Put another one on your kitchen counter. Make the book more present and more obvious in your environment than your phone. Do you want to eat more fruit? Don't hide it in the crisper drawer in the back of your refrigerator. Go out and buy a beautiful fruit bowl and place it right in the middle of your kitchen island, the place you walk past a dozen times a day. Do you want to practice the guitar more? Don't keep it packed away in its case, in the closet. Buy a guitar stand and leave it out in the middle of your living room. The constant visual cue will call to you, inviting you to play. The goal is to make the cues for your good habits the most prominent things in your environment. Conversely, to break a bad habit, we simply use the inversion of this law, make it invisible. If you can remove the cue, the habit loop can never even begin. This is often far more effective than trying to use willpower. Do you want to stop eating so much junk food? The most effective strategy is to simply get it out of your house. If it is not there, you cannot eat it. If you feel you must have it, at least make the cue less obvious. Hide it on the highest shelf in your pantry, inside an opaque container, where you are less likely to see it. Are you spending too much time on your phone at night? Don't charge it on your nightstand. Make a rule to leave it charging in another room, like the kitchen. By removing the visual cue of the phone next to your bed, you eliminate the temptation to scroll for hours. The most effective way to break a bad habit is to cut it off at the source by making its cue invisible. The first law is all about taking control of the triggers that launch your behaviors. By using implementation intentions to create clear plans, using habit stacking to link new habits to old ones, and most importantly, by becoming the architect of your environment, you can set the stage for success. You can make the cues for your good habits unavoidable and the cues for your bad habits disappear. But making a cue obvious is only the first part of the puzzle. You can have a bowl of fruit sitting on your counter all day, but what if you still find yourself reaching for the cookie? You can put your running shoes right by the front door. But what if the very thought of going for a run feels like a tedious chore? Just because a cue is obvious doesn't mean we will act on it, especially if the habit itself seems boring or unappealing. This brings us to the next crucial law. We have to make our habits desirable. In the next part, we'll dive into the second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. We've learned how to engineer our environment to make the cues for our good habits perfectly obvious. The running shoes are right by the door. The book is sitting on the pillow. The fruit is in a bowl on the counter. But let's be honest, that's only half the battle. If the thought of actually going for that run fills you with dread, or if opening that book feels like a boring chore, you still will not do it. A cue is just the invitation to act. But if the event you are being invited to seems dull and unappealing, you will decline the invitation every single time. This brings us to the second step of the habit loop, the craving, and the second law of behavior change, make it attractive. To understand this law, we need to understand a specific chemical in our brains called dopamine. Dopamine is often called the pleasure molecule, but that's not quite accurate. Recent science has shown that dopamine is released not just when we experience pleasure, but more importantly, when we anticipate it. It is the molecule of motivation. The anticipation of a reward is what generates a craving, and it is that craving that drives us to take action. The parts of our brain that are responsible for wanting something are much larger and more powerful than the parts responsible for actually liking it. The craving is the engine of our behavior. Modern society is filled with engineers who are masters at manipulating this system to their advantage. Think about the junk food industry. Food scientists have spent fortunes figuring out how to create products that are irresistible. They carefully engineer the perfect combination of salt, sugar, and fat to hit what they call the bliss point in our brains. They even design foods with dynamic contrast, like a cookie that is crunchy on the outside and soft and gooey on the inside. These products are known as supernormal stimuli. They are exaggerated versions of reality that are designed to be far more attractive to our primitive brains than natural foods like fruits and vegetables. The same is true for social media. The endless stream of likes, comments, and notifications provides a perfectly engineered drip of social validation that is designed to keep you coming back for more. These bad habits are not hard to form because they are scientifically designed to be overwhelmingly attractive. To build good habits, we need to learn how to use these same principles to our advantage. The first technique for this is a clever strategy called temptation bundling. The core idea is to link an action that you want to do with an action that you need to do. You bundle a temptation with a necessary habit. The book tells the story of an engineering student in Ireland who knew he needed to exercise more but loved watching shows on Netflix. So he hacked his stationary bike. He wrote a computer program that would only allow Netflix to play on his laptop if he was cycling at a certain speed. If he slowed down for too long, the show he was watching would pause until he started pedaling again. He perfectly bundled the thing he wanted to do, which was watch Netflix, with the thing he needed to do, which was exercise. You can apply this strategy to almost any habit. Let's say you need to do your cardio workout at the gym, but you really want to catch up on the latest celebrity gossip or listen to your favorite true crime podcast. The rule is simple. You are only allowed to indulge in that podcast or read those magazines while you are on the treadmill or the elliptical. You have a mountain of boring emails to get through, but you would love to get a relaxing pedicure. So, you bundle them. You sit in the massage chair and answer your emails while getting your pedicure. This strategy works by letting the dopamine spike from the thing you want to do spill over and become associated with the thing you need to do. The highly attractive habit essentially pulls the less attractive one along for the ride. A second, and even more powerful tool for making your habits attractive is to leverage the immense power of social norms. Humans are social creatures. We have a deep, primal desire to belong, to fit in with our tribe, and to earn the respect and approval of our peers. This desire is one of the most powerful motivators of human behavior. We often unconsciously imitate the habits of the people around us. The book explains that there are three main social groups that we imitate. The first group is the close. These are the people we are closest to, like our family and our friends. Their influence on our behavior is profound. One famous study cited in the book found that if your closest friend becomes obese, your own risk of becoming obese increases by a staggering 57%, even if your friend lives hundreds of miles away. We unconsciously soak up the habits, mannerisms, and attitudes of those in our inner circle. You start using the same slang as your college roommate. You adopt the work ethic of your closest colleagues. You absorb the political beliefs of your parents. The lesson here is clear. One of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Surround yourself with people who already have the habits you want to have yourself. Their normal will eventually become your normal. The second group we imitate is the many. This refers to our natural human tendency to conform to the norms of our larger tribe. We want to do what everyone else is doing. The classic Asch conformity experiments in psychology demonstrated this perfectly. In these studies, a person would be placed in a room with a group of actors and asked to judge the length of a line. The actors would all intentionally give a clearly wrong answer. In a shocking number of cases, the person would abandon their own judgment and go along with the crowd's incorrect answer, simply to avoid the discomfort of being the odd one out. When changing your habits means going against the grain of your social group, it feels like a constant, draining, uphill battle. But when your desired habit is the standard behavior of your tribe, it feels natural and easy. If everyone in your office values taking a full lunch break away from their desk, you are more likely to do so. If all your friends get together to go hiking on the weekends, you are far more likely to become a hiker. Find a tribe where the behavior you want is the celebrated norm. And the third group we imitate is the powerful. We are naturally drawn to imitate people who have status, prestige, and success. We look up to them and we want to adopt the behaviors that we believe earn them their position. If a particular behavior can win us respect, praise, and admiration, we will find that behavior highly attractive. You can use this to your advantage by reframing the benefits of your habits. For example, exercising isn't just about being healthy. It's about developing the discipline and physique of a high performer. Reading books isn't just about learning new information. It's about cultivating the wisdom and perspective of successful leaders and thinkers. By highlighting the high-status benefits of a habit, you make it more attractive to your brain. The second law, make it attractive, is all about hijacking your brain's natural motivation system. By using temptation, bundling to link what you need to do with what you already want to do, and by leveraging the immense power of social norms to your advantage, you can make your good habits feel less like a chore and more like an opportunity. You can make them truly irresistible. So, we have now made our good habits obvious, and we have made them attractive. The cue is there, and the desire is growing. But what if the habit itself is just really hard? What if it requires a ton of physical effort or mental energy? No matter how obvious the cue or how strong the craving, if there's too much friction in your way, you will likely find an excuse not to do it. That is where our next law comes in. We need to clear the path. In the next part, we will explore the third law of behavior change. Make it easy. We have laid the groundwork for success perfectly. We have learned how to engineer our environment to make the cues for our good habits obvious. We have learned how to make them attractive by bundling our temptations and surrounding ourselves with supportive people. The invitation to act is there, and the desire to accept it is growing. But now we arrive at the moment of truth. We have to actually perform the action. And if that action feels like climbing a steep mountain, we will almost always choose to stay at the base and admire the view. This is the exact point where so many of our best intentions die a quiet death. It brings us to the crucial third law of behavior change. Make it easy. To understand this law, you have to understand a fundamental principle of all human and even animal behavior. We are guided by the law of least effort. Our brains did not evolve to do difficult things. They evolved over millions of years to do one thing very well: conserve energy. In the world of our ancestors, energy was scarce and precious. Wasting it could be the difference between life and death. So, our brains are hardwired with a simple default setting. When faced with multiple options, we will almost always gravitate toward the one that requires the least amount of work. Think about it in our modern lives. Why can we effortlessly scroll through our phones for hours on end, but struggle to focus on reading a book for 20 minutes? Why is it so much easier to order a pizza than it is to cook a healthy meal from scratch? The answer is the law of least effort. The path of least resistance is the one we will naturally follow. Every habit is essentially an obstacle you must overcome to get a result. The more energy a habit requires, the more friction there is between you and your desired outcome. When the friction is too high, motivation alone is not enough to get you through. The secret, then, is not to find more motivation to push through the friction. The secret is to systematically remove the friction. The first strategy for this is to once again use environment design. But this time, our focus is on making the action itself simpler. We want to reduce the number of steps between you and your good habits. Do you want to make going to the gym a consistent habit? Do not just pick the gym with the fanciest equipment. Pick the one that is directly on your commute home from work. By choosing a location that is already on your path, you have reduced the friction of going out of your way to almost zero. Do you want to drink more water throughout the day? Do not rely on having to walk to the kitchen every time you are thirsty. Keep a water bottle on your desk at work, one in your car, and one next to your bed at night. By doing this, you have reduced the number of steps required to take a drink from dozens to just one. We need to apply the lean manufacturing mindset that revolutionized Japanese industry to our own lives, relentlessly eliminating every point of friction and wasted effort. A second, more proactive strategy is to prime your environment. This means preparing your space in advance to make future actions as seamless as possible. You are setting up your future self for success. For example, if you want to make a healthy breakfast tomorrow morning, do not wait until you are groggy and rushing around to start. The night before, take out the pan you will use, get out the cooking oil, the spices, the bowls, and the utensils. You could even chop up the vegetables and put them in a container. When you wake up, the task of making breakfast is no longer a multi-step process. The path of least resistance now leads directly to a healthy meal, not a box of sugary cereal. Do you want to start your day with a run? Before you go to bed, lay out your running shorts, your shirt, your socks, your shoes, and your headphones. When your alarm goes off, you do not have to think, search, or make decisions. You just get dressed and go. By taking 2 minutes to prepare the night before, you make it easy to follow through. Finally, we come to one of the most powerful and famous techniques in the entire book, the 2-minute rule. The rule is simple and direct. When you are starting a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. That's it. You scale down your desired habit into a tiny 2-minute version that is so easy you cannot possibly say no. Read before bed every night becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take on my yoga mat. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. Fold a pile of laundry becomes fold 1 pair of socks. The purpose of this rule is not to get you to stop after 2 minutes. The purpose is to help you master the most critical skill of all, the art of showing up. The biggest obstacle to any new habit is just getting started. The 2-minute rule makes the starting line so easy to cross that it becomes almost automatic. The point is to make the beginning of your routine effortless. Anyone can read 1 page. Anyone can take out their yoga mat. And often, once you have started, the inertia of motion will carry you forward. You will read more than 1 page. You will do more than just stand on your yoga mat. But even if you do not, you have still won. You have successfully performed the habit. You have cast another vote for your new identity. You have reinforced the behavior of showing up, which is the foundation of everything. A habit must first be established before it can be improved. You must standardize before you can optimize. The 2-minute rule creates a small gateway habit that naturally leads you into the larger routine you want to build. And of course, we can invert this law to break our bad habits by making them difficult. To do this, you must increase the friction. Add more steps between you and the bad habit. If you watch too much television, unplug it after every use and take the batteries out of the remote. That small bit of added friction might be enough to make you reconsider if you really want to watch something. If you are trying to cut down on impulse online shopping, delete your saved credit card information from all of your online accounts. The simple act of having to get up, find your wallet, and manually type in the 16-digit number adds just enough friction to give you a moment to pause and decide if you really need to make that purchase. The third law, make it easy, is all about paving a smooth, downhill path for your good habits. By reducing friction, priming your environment for future action, and using the powerful 2-minute rule to just get started, you begin to work with the law of least effort instead of constantly fighting against it. You make your desired behavior the most convenient and logical option. This is fantastic. We have made our new habit obvious, attractive, and now, incredibly easy to perform. It seems like success is practically guaranteed. But there is one final critical piece of the puzzle missing. If you perform a habit, even an easy one, but you get no positive feedback from it. If your effort seems to vanish into a void with no recognition, how long do you think you will keep doing it? Not very long. For a habit to truly stick for a lifetime, it must feel good. This brings us to the final, and perhaps most important law of all, the fourth law, make it satisfying. We have built an incredible foundation for success. We have made our new habit obvious, so it is hard to forget. We have made it attractive, so we are motivated to do it. And we have made it easy, so there is very little friction to get started. We are practically guaranteed to perform the action at least once. But the first three laws are all about getting a behavior to happen this one time. The fourth and final law is about ensuring that the behavior gets repeated again and again, until it becomes a permanent part of your life. This brings us to the final step of the habit loop, the reward, and the most fundamental principle of all behavior change: make it satisfying. The book states what it calls the cardinal rule of behavior change, and it is this: what is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. This is the simple feedback mechanism that our brains have been using for millions of years. The feeling of pleasure or satisfaction at the end of a habit loop is what signals to your brain, that was good, that was worth doing. Let's do that again in the future. The reward is what closes the loop and tells your brain to automate this process for next time. The fresh minty feeling in your mouth after you brush your teeth is a satisfying reward. The feeling of cleanliness after you wash your hands with a nice smelling soap is a satisfying reward. These small, immediate pleasures are the reason those habits stick so easily. But this brings us to a huge problem, a fundamental conflict between how our brains are wired and the world we live in today. Our brains evolved in what scientists call an immediate return environment. For our ancient ancestors, most decisions had an immediate consequence. They saw a lion, they ran immediately. They found berries, they ate them immediately. Their brains were built to prioritize the present moment, to seek immediate pleasure and avoid immediate pain. But we now live in a delayed return environment. The rewards for our good habits are often delayed for weeks, months, or even years. You work hard at your job today, but you might not get paid for 2 more weeks. You go to the gym today, but you will not see a significant change in your body for months. You save a little bit of money today, but you will not get to enjoy your retirement for decades. Here's the dangerous mismatch. For our good habits, the cost is paid immediately. The effort, the self-discipline, and the boredom are all felt right now. But the reward is far off in the future. For our bad habits, the situation is the exact opposite. The reward is immediate. The pleasure of eating that donut, the relaxation from smoking that cigarette, the distraction of scrolling through social media, all of it happens right now. But the cost, like gaining weight or damaging your health, is delayed. When our ancient pleasure-seeking brain is faced with this choice, it will almost always choose the immediate gratification of the bad habit. To fix this, we have to find a way to bring a little bit of immediate satisfaction into our good, long-term habits. One way to do this is to add a small, immediate reward to the end of your habit. But there is a crucial rule. The reward must not conflict with your long-term goals or your identity. Rewarding yourself for a tough workout with a giant bowl of ice cream only undermines the very habit you are trying to build. Instead, the reward should align with your goals. For instance, if you are trying to save money, maybe your habit is to resist buying that expensive coffee every morning. When you do not just let that $5 disappear into your checking account. Instead, immediately transfer that exact amount into a separate savings account named Trip to Europe or New Leather Jacket. Watching the balance in that specific account grow provides an immediate visual and highly satisfying reward that reinforces your good financial habit. A second, and even more powerful strategy for creating satisfaction is to use a habit tracker. The simple act of tracking your progress is its own form of reward. It provides clear, visual proof that you are putting in the work. The most famous method for this is the don't break the chain method, popularized by the comedian Jerry Seinfeld. To become a better comedian, Seinfeld's goal was to write a new joke every single day. He got a big wall calendar, the kind with the whole year on one page. Every day that he successfully completed his writing task, he would take a big red marker and draw a giant X over that date. After a few days, you have a chain, Seinfeld explained. Just keep at it, and the chain will grow longer every day. You'll like seeing that chain, especially when you get a few weeks under your belt. Your only job next is to not break the chain. The growing chain of red X's is a beautiful and satisfying visual reward. The thought of having a blank space on that calendar, of breaking that perfect chain, becomes its own form of pain. Tracking your habits is so effective because it leverages multiple laws at once. The visual record is a cue that reminds you to act. Seeing your streak grow is attractive and motivates you to continue. And the act of crossing an item off your list is immediately satisfying. Of course, we can also invert this final law to break our bad habits by making them immediately unsatisfying. To do this, you need to introduce an immediate cost. The pain needs to be upfront, not delayed. The most effective way to do this is to create a habit contract and get an accountability partner. This is a formal agreement, either written or verbal, where you state your intended habit and the immediate punishment that will occur if you fail. The book tells the story of an entrepreneur named Brian Harris who wanted to get serious about his health. He wrote up a contract signed by himself, his wife, and his personal trainer. He set specific goals for his diet and exercise. If he failed to meet them, the consequences were immediate and painful. He would have to give his trainer $200. And, even though he worked from home, he would have to dress in a full suit and tie every single morning for the next week. The immediate pain of losing money and the sheer annoyance of having to dress up were far more effective deterrents than the distant threat of poor health. The fourth and final law, make it satisfying, closes the habit loop and teaches your brain to repeat the behavior. By adding a small dose of immediate pleasure to your good habits, using a habit tracker to make your progress tangible, and creating an immediate cost for your bad habits. You align your actions with your brain's deep-seated desire for immediate feedback. You make sure that your efforts feel successful right now, not just in some distant future. At this point, we have covered the entire 4-step framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones. We have a powerful set of tools at our disposal. But we all know that life is messy and unpredictable. No matter how perfect your system is, you will eventually have a bad day. You will get sick, you will have to work late, you will be too tired, you will slip up. What happens in that moment? The difference between long-term success and ultimate failure often comes down to how you handle these inevitable moments of imperfection. In our final section, we will cover the one simple rule for getting back on track quickly, and we will tie together everything we have learned about the incredible power of atomic habits. So far, we have built the perfect system. The 4 laws are in place to make our good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. It feels like we have a foolproof plan. But we all live in the real world, and the real world is messy and unpredictable. Life will inevitably get in the way. You will get sick. You will have an overwhelmingly stressful day at work. You will go on vacation. Your perfect chain of habits will, eventually, break. In that moment of failure, most of us fall into a very dangerous mental trap. We think, well, I've blown it. All of my progress is lost. And with that one thought, we give up completely. But Atomic Habits gives us one simple, golden rule for navigating this exact situation. A rule that separates those who succeed in the long run from those who fail. That golden rule is this: never miss twice. It is okay to miss one day. It is acceptable. Life happens. Perfection is not possible, so do not even try to achieve it. Forgive yourself for the single slip-up. But the most important thing you can do is to not allow yourself to miss 2 days in a row. You were exhausted yesterday and skipped your workout. That is fine. But you must get back to it today, even if it is just for 10 minutes. You ate an entire pizza last night. It happens. But your very next meal needs to be a healthy one. Why is this rule so critically important? Because, as the book powerfully states, missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit. A single missed workout is just a random event, a minor interruption on an otherwise smooth road. But 2 missed workouts in a row is like turning onto a new road, one that leads directly back to your old undesirable behaviors. The difference between successful people and everyone else is not that they are perfect or never fail. It is that they recover from their failures incredibly quickly. Getting back on track is far more important than maintaining a perfect, unbroken record from the start. This helps us fight against the destructive all-or-nothing mindset. So many of us think, if I cannot do my full 45-minute workout, then I am just not going to do anything at all. This is a huge mistake. What you do not realize is that on those bad, busy, and unmotivated days, just showing up and doing something is often the most important thing you can do. Even a bad workout is infinitely better than doing nothing. Why? Because it keeps the power of compound interest working in your favor. It allows you to avoid a 0 day. It prevents your previous hard-earned gains from eroding. As the great investor Charlie Munger said, the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Even more importantly, by pushing through on a bad day, you are casting one of the most powerful votes possible for your new identity. It is easy to be a healthy person when you feel great and are full of energy. But going for a 5-minute walk when you are tired and feeling lazy? That is the moment that truly forges your identity. You are proving to yourself, with actions, that you are the type of person who shows up even when it is hard. And that brings us to the end of our journey. We have covered the entire framework of this incredible book. Let's return to the central idea we started with. Can tiny changes really lead to remarkable results? The ancient Greeks had a famous story called the Sorius paradox. It asks, can a single coin make a person rich? Of course not. What about adding one more coin? Or one more after that? At some point, you have to admit that the continuous accumulation of single, insignificant coins is what eventually causes the massive change from being poor to being rich. Your atomic habits are the same. One tiny change, like meditating for 1 minute or reading 1 page, will not change your life overnight. At first, your small efforts might seem to disappear into the valley of disappointment, making you feel like nothing is happening. But as long as you stick with it, as long as you keep casting those small votes for the direction you want to go, you will eventually reach a tipping point. Suddenly, you will find that sticking to good habits feels easier. The temptation of bad habits feels weaker. The power of your entire system begins to work for you, not against you. The ultimate secret of atomic habits is not about one single magical 1% improvement. It is about the consistent accumulation of thousands of them. If you are struggling to change your habits, please remember this: the problem is not you. The problem is your system. And now, you have a powerful set of tools to fix it. The 4 laws of behavior change are your diagnostic kit. When a habit is hard to remember, find a way to make it obvious. When you lack the motivation for a habit, find a way to make it attractive. When a habit seems too difficult, find a way to make it easy. And when a habit is hard to stick with, find a way to make it satisfying. This is a continuous, endless process of refinement. Success is not a goal to be reached or a finish line to be crossed. It is a system to be improved. If you never stop improving your skills, what an incredible career you could build. If you never stop taking care of your body, what a healthy and vital life you could live. If you never stop learning, what profound wisdom you could accumulate. Small habits do not just add up, they compound. They grow exponentially. That is the true, staggering power of atomic habits. I hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective and the courage to take action. Remember, change always begins with the smallest atomic habit you can do right now. Tiny changes, remarkable results.